All right, so you're getting ready for an ICT Vendor Relationship Manager interview.
That's awesome.
We're diving deep into RoleCatcher's resources
Oh, yeah.
to give you a serious edge in this deep dive.
Yeah, think of it as your interview cheat sheet,
Okay.
packed with insights and strategies to help you really stand out.
I like it.
And RoleCatcher is this incredible treasure trove of career guides, skills guides. And they have literally thousands of real interview questions.
Oh, wow.
They even have this really cool AI that helps tailor your resume
Interesting.
and preps you for interviews, but we'll circle back to that later.
Okay, sounds good. First, let's break down what an ICT Vendor Relationship Manager actually does.
Yeah.
You need to be able to articulate this very clearly in your interview.
Yeah.
It's not just about schmoothing vendors, right?
Right. The RoleCatcher Career Guide highlights some key functions like developing outsourcing strategies, negotiating contracts, and ensuring vendor compliance. Think of it as being the bridge between your organization's needs and the solutions that vendors can provide.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And you'll be managing a lot of relationships, not just with vendors, but with internal stakeholders too.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some of the common interview questions.
Okay.
And how to approach them like a pro. RoleCatcher suggests really understanding the why behind the question.
Absolutely. Imagine you're the interviewer. You're not just looking for someone who can answer questions by rote.
Yeah.
You want someone who can demonstrate their experience, their problem-solving skills, and their understanding of all the complexities of this role.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, first question. How do you establish and maintain strong relationships with ICT vendors?
Okay.
What are they really getting at here?
I think they want to see if you really understand that vendor relationships are much more than just transactional interactions.
Right.
They want to know if you see them as strategic partnerships.
Okay.
It's about building trust, open communication, and understanding the vendor's perspective.
So how do you craft an answer that goes beyond just saying, I'm a people person?
You got to give them concrete examples. Talk about how you research vendors beforehand to understand their strengths and their weaknesses, and mention how you prioritize regular communication, not just when there's a problem.
I love that. Proactive communication really sets you apart. And RoleCatcher stresses the importance of building trust. What are some specific strategies that you've used to build trust with vendors?
One thing that's really worked for me is just being transparent about expectations and timelines.
Yeah.
Vendors appreciate honesty,
Right.
even when things get tough. And it's crucial to show that you're genuinely interested in their success, not just your own.
Okay, so you've nailed the initial answer.
Okay.
Now brace yourself for a follow-up.
Right.
Can you give me a specific example of a time you had to repair a damaged relationship with a vendor? They want to see how you handle those tricky situations.
Exactly. This is where you can really showcase your conflict resolution skills. Have a story ready.
Okay.
One that demonstrates your ability to listen, empathize, and find a solution that benefits both parties.
All right, let's move on to another common question.
Yeah.
How do you manage vendor contracts and ensure compliance?
Yeah.
What's the key takeaway here?
Well, it's about demonstrating that you understand the legal and regulatory landscape.
Okay.
You need to show that you're meticulous about the details, proactive in identifying potential issues, and comfortable working within established frameworks.
So don't just say, I'm good at reading contracts.
Yeah.
What are some specifics you can highlight?
You could talk about your process for reviewing contract terms, tracking key dates, and communicating with vendors about compliance requirements.
Right.
And don't forget to mention staying updated on all the relevant regulations. That shows you're on top of your game.
Right. And they might throw a curveball like, what steps would you take if you discovered a vendor was not in compliance with contract terms? How do you handle that?
First, don't panic.
Okay, good advice.
Explain that you would gather all the necessary information, document the non-compliance issue, and then communicate very clearly with the vendor. Highlight your ability to stay calm, to follow procedures, and to work collaboratively towards a resolution.
It all sounds pretty intense. It's amazing how RoleCatcher's AI can help you practice these scenarios. It's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
It's a total game changer, really. You can practice your answers and get personalized feedback, so you're not just winging it in the actual interview.
Right.
We'll dive deeper into the AI features a bit later.
Okay, now let's tackle another big one. How do you evaluate vendor performance? This is where you show you're data-driven
Hmm.
and results-oriented.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just rely on gut feelings or anecdotal evidence.
Right.
You need a system for objectively measuring vendor performance.
So walk them through your process.
Okay.
How do you define performance metrics?
Yeah.
Do you use any specific tools or software for tracking?
Right. And be prepared for those follow-ups. Like, tell me about a time you had to address a vendor whose performance was consistently below expectations. They want to see your problem-solving skills in action.
And how you handle those potentially difficult conversations with diplomacy and professionalism.
Sure.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. How do you handle conflicts with vendors? Conflicts are bound to happen, so how you approach them is crucial.
Totally.
This is about more than just saying you're a good communicator. What specific strategies do you employ?
I always emphasize active listening, seeking to understand the other party's perspective,
Right.
and finding a solution that really addresses the underlying issue. It's not about winning or losing. It's about finding a resolution that works for everyone involved.
And a good way to illustrate this is with a real-life example from your experience. Have a story ready that showcases your ability to navigate a conflict successfully.
They might ask, what steps do you take to prevent conflicts from escalating? This is where you can talk about setting those clear expectations up front,
Yeah.
establishing open communication channels,
Okay.
and proactively addressing potential issues before they become major problems.
It's a great point, and it ties back to the importance of building those strong relationships from the start.
It all comes full circle.
Okay, so we've covered some heavy hitters, but there are a few more key questions to tackle. Let's take a quick breather and then jump right back in. Remember, practice makes perfect, and RoleCatcher's AI can help you refine your answers and boost your confidence. We'll explore those features in more detail later on.
Stay tuned. We're just getting started. Okay, so let's jump back into those interview questions.
Okay, sounds good. Where were we? Yes, prepping for those curveballs. What about this one? How do you ensure that vendors are meeting those service level agreements? It feels like a real make-or-break question.
It is. It is. This is where you really demonstrate your expertise
Okay.
in setting those clear expectations
Right.
and holding your vendors accountable. They are looking for a process-driven approach.
So walk them through how you define SLAs,
Okay.
those service level agreements. Do you collaborate with stakeholders? What tools or systems do you use for tracking? Details matter here.
Absolutely. And what happens if a vendor falls short? This is your chance to really shine. Describe your escalation process,
Oh.
how you identify and address any performance gaps, and what your communication strategy is.
It's a delicate balance of firmness and diplomacy. You're protecting your organization's interests
Right.
while maintaining a positive working relationship. Now imagine this follow-up. Tell me about a time you had to enforce an SLA with a vendor. Have a compelling story ready, one with a positive outcome. They love those.
Yeah, they eat that up.
Speaking of tricky situations, how about vendor risk management? That's a big one. What if they ask, how do you manage vendor risk?
This is where you showcase your big picture thinking. Talk about your process for identifying and assessing risks, not just focusing on the day-to-day operations.
Different types of risks, like cybersecurity, financial, even reputational risks. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, is it?
No, not at all. Mention any specific frameworks or tools that you use for risk assessment.
Okay.
Show them that you're proactive, not just reacting when something goes wrong.
And they might ask, what's your approach to due diligence when onboarding new vendors? This is where you can really impress them with your thoroughness.
For sure. Detail your process and highlight all those key checks and balances. It shows that you're not just signing contracts blindly, but that you're really safeguarding the organization's interests.
Now let's talk crisis management. What about this question? How do you manage vendor relationships during a crisis? Feels like they're really trying to see how you think on your feet.
Yeah, it's a pressure test. Emphasize open communication,
Yeah.
collaboration, and your ability to develop a clear action plan. Highlight your experience with business continuity planning too.
So they might ask, walk me through a crisis situation you faced and how you manage the vendor relationship. Have a strong example ready, one that demonstrates your leadership skills.
And then let's shift gears to strategic thinking. How do you ensure that vendor relationships align with business objectives? This one is all about demonstrating that you're not just managing vendors in a silo,
Right.
but that you're actively supporting the organization's goals.
It's about being a strategic partner, not just a task manager.
Exactly. Explain how you stay informed about the company's strategic objective,
Yeah.
how you evaluate vendor capabilities in light of those objectives, and how you really nurture those relationships to ensure that they remain aligned.
They might ask, can you provide an example of a time you had to realign a vendor relationship to better support changing business priorities? Have a story ready that showcases your adaptability.
Oh, for sure. And then let's talk about global vendor management. How do you manage vendor performance in a global environment? This is where you demonstrate your cultural awareness
Go ahead.
and your ability to navigate all those complexities.
So time zones, language barriers, different business practices, it's a whole other ballgame.
It is. Highlight your sensitivity to cultural nuances,
Okay.
your communication strategies, and your experience with managing projects across multiple time zones.
They could follow up with, what strategies do you use to overcome language barriers when working with global vendors? Be ready to share specific examples and tools.
Right. And now let's wrap up with two really crucial questions that often trip up candidates. Conflict management
Okay.
and measuring value.
Okay, first up, how do you handle conflicts with vendors? We touched on this a little earlier, but this question really digs deep into your conflict resolution style.
It does. Emphasize open communication, active listening, and your ability to find mutually beneficial solutions. Share a really compelling example that demonstrates those skills in action.
And be prepared for follow-ups, like, what's your approach to negotiating with vendors when there's a disagreement? Showcase your negotiation skills and your ability to find those win-win solutions.
Yeah, for sure.
Last but not least, how do you measure the value of vendor relationships? This is where you really showcase your strategic thinking and your understanding of the bigger picture.
It is. Explain how you identify KPIs,
Okay.
how you track and measure them,
Yeah.
and how you use this data to make informed decisions about your vendor relationships.
They might ask, can you provide an example of a time you used data to demonstrate the value of a vendor relationship to stakeholders? Have a story ready that highlights your analytical skills and your ability to communicate complex information effectively.
And don't forget about RoleCatcher's AI.
Yes.
It can analyze your answers to these very questions,
Oh, wow.
providing personalized feedback to help you refine your responses and boost your confidence.
It's like having a secret weapon in your interview arsenal. We'll unpack those AI features in more detail in the next segment.
Stay tuned. We're about to reveal how RoleCatcher can take your interview prep to the next level. But first, let's take a quick break.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground on interview prep. But remember, it's not just about nailing all the answers.
Right.
It's about showing genuine enthusiasm for the role and for building those all-important vendor relationships.
Enthusiasm is contagious. Let your passion shine through, and they'll be impressed.
Now let's circle back to RoleCatcher's AI features. It's not just about the amazing career guides and the interview questions. It's also about how their AI can give you that extra edge.
Yeah, it's like having a personalized coach in your pocket.
Oh,
It analyzes your interview responses and provides this tailored feedback, helping you to fine-tune your delivery and your content.
so it's not about memorizing scripted answers. It's about understanding how to present yourself in the best possible light.
Exactly. It helps you identify areas for improvement, maybe even suggesting stronger examples.
Right.
Or highlighting areas where you could be more concise.
Yeah. And the best part is, it's all tailored to specific job roles. So if you're prepping for an ICT Vendor Relationship Manager interview, the AI is going to give you feedback that's really relevant to that specific role.
It's so valuable, especially in today's competitive job market.
Plus, RoleCatcher's AI can even help you tailor your resume to specific job descriptions.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure that your skills and experience align with what those employers are looking for.
It's not about trying to trick the system, but about really understanding how AI recruitment tools actually work.
Right.
And presenting yourself in a way that gets you noticed.
It's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of winning, we haven't even touched on the career insights from the RoleCatcher Career Guide. This role has some serious potential for growth.
Okay, let's talk career paths. Where can this role lead? What are the possibilities?
Well, you could climb the ladder to become a chief operating officer,
Okay.
a director of operations, or even specialize in a niche area like digital supply chain management. The options are vast.
And don't forget about the earning potential. ICT Vendor Relationship Managers are in high demand.
But it's not all about the money, is it? It's also about the opportunity to work with cutting-edge technology
Right.
and to really be a key player in shaping your organization's success.
It's a challenging role, for sure. The guide mentions the potential for stress long hours and the constant need to stay ahead of the curve. But for the right person, those challenges are part of the excitement.
Absolutely. And to boost your credibility and demonstrate your commitment to professional development, consider pursuing some certifications like the ITIL Foundation,
Okay.
the COP,
Mm-hmm.
the CPSD, and the CPSF.
And let me break down those acronyms for our listeners.
Yeah.
The ITIL Foundation certification focuses on IT service management best practices. The COP stands for Certified Outsourcing Professional.
Uh-huh.
CPSD is Certified Professional in Supplier Diversity.
Right.
And CPSM is Certified Professional in Supply Management. There you go. A whole new alphabet soup for you.
And don't underestimate the power of networking. Attend industry events, connect with other professionals on LinkedIn, build relationships. You never know where those connections might lead.
That's all about putting yourself out there.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. Interview, prep, AI-powered tools, career insights. You're now armed with the knowledge and the strategies not just to ace that ICT Vendor Relationship Manager interview, but to truly thrive in this dynamic and rewarding field.
Remember, confidence is key. You've got this.
And before you go, think back to a time you successfully collaborated with someone maybe on a project or even just planning a trip. How did you build that relationship? How can those same skills translate to managing those crucial ICT vendor relationships?
It's all connected, and it really starts with a genuine desire to build those strong, mutually beneficial partnerships.
Go out there and rock that interview. And don't forget to check out RoleCatcher. It's free to get started, and it might just be the secret weapon you need to land your dream job.
Best of luck. We're rooting for you.